Many flat earthers, including most of the high-profile channels, are of the opinion that nuclear bombs are a total hoax. While I agree there has been a hoax element attached to them, my findings indicate there is substance to them. Furthermore, to refute nuclear detonations is to refute sacred geometry. I feel what's been holding Flat Earth back from making any kind of development has been this indoctrination into a false narrative, effectively leading the Flat Earth community down a cul-de-sac. Now, I must make mention of the Gleason 1892 map. It has proven to be an exact and robust device. There's more to the arrows than meet the eye. Let's begin. In February 2016, while sifting through some earthquake data, I came across a location that I've seen hundreds and hundreds of times before, and that location was the Ionian Sea. The Ionian Sea is a play on words. Ionian Sea is in fact C Ionian, the first of the 7 diatonic modes. They are C Ionian, D Dorian, E Phrygian, F Lydian, G Mixolydian, A Aeolian, B Locrian. Now, any guitarist will tell you whenever they discuss scales, it's always relative to the key of C. I'm just going to reach for the guitar. With all the modes, you're effectively playing the 7 natural notes, with the 8th note being an octave raised from the first. And so we play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Predominantly played over a C. With Dorian, let's say a D minor. Yeah, you're playing the 7 natural notes in alphabetical order. The only thing that changes is the note that you start on. That determines the tonal modality of the piece you're playing over. That defines the emotion. Let's move on. 1 circle, 2 intersecting lines within that circle. The same 2 lines a tad closer. Now here's the thing. If the Creator one day decided to destroy everything, the universe and the earth, and maybe there would come a time that the Creator wanted to rebuild everything, well, providing the Creator did so, but by using the exact same program specification, then Giza will always be there. The bottom left rim of that tiny red circle. Always. It can never not be there. I give to you the Gleason map. The same 2 lines. The same 2 lines a tad closer. You are now looking at a Google Maps graphical representation of all the purported nuclear bomb site blast locations. From an alleged 2,000 odd bomb blasts, you may or may not be surprised to learn that there's only ever been a reported 31 bomb site locations. From these locations, I'm going to show you 4. They are Lop Nor in China, the last superpower to allegedly detonate nuclear bombs in 1996. Just for reference, timeanddate.com only goes far back to 1996. Second, we have Amchitka, a USA holding sitting on the Bering Strait between Russia and Alaska. Third, we have Hattiesburg, deep south on the Mississippi Delta. And last, we have the 4 sites in Algeria. As I don't want to give the game away too early, I'm going to show you a tiny portion of my stage 1 geometry. Now you're ready for this. You will be forgiven if you have to sweep up your jaw from the floor. How is that for a friggin' relationship? That's quadrilicity. I'm looking at collusion. That's teamwork, all working to the same end. Let's take a closer look. When you look into the work of Bruce Cathy would put forward that nuclear bombs, they're either dropped or placed on time zones. And when he discussed antimatter, especially when dealing with light, he would put forward that you would have to double the light value in order to account for the antimatter cycle. While longitude and latitude may be a satisfactory system, these lines on the map are anything but longitude and latitude. And I remember Mr. Cathy putting forward that think of antimatter as that stuff in between frames on a roll of film that binds them all together. Think of that as antimatter. Those lines are in fact the time zones. They are the antimatter zones. With this Lop Nor site, you can see that time zone line straight through that right angle. we're looking at Amchitka and Algeria. Same thing with those lines. Hattiesburg circled red. Now if we come to the left, to the next right angle, you just know that that time zone sorts out all the Nevada detonations. Now see that time zone between the Nevada zone and the Hattiesburg zone? Well, on my stage 2 geometry, that shows another right angle. And you just know that that sorts out New Mexico and Colorado. I'm now going to show you a small portion of my stage 2 geometry. We're going to have a look at Japan. Now on that square you can see that time zone line again. Hiroshima is bang on for that line. It was only America's second nuclear bomb blast. With regard to Nagasaki, the horizontal line for that square that sits at the top rim of that circle, you have to head towards there for Nagasaki. That detonation didn't go too well. It ended up being nothing more than a dirty bomb. So even here out in the field, things do sometimes go wrong. Can you still make out the two Giza lines? Those two lines are in fact a derivative of this geometry. And here is the same shape superimposed over the Gleason map. I'm now going to rotate the map by 120 degrees clockwise. Please try to keep tabs on where Giza ends up. It's either an elephant by Picasso, or does Sir dress to the left? He does. It's Leonardo's tranny man. 'Tis be Leonardo's transcendental man. Leonardo knew the secret I'm about to share with you. I'm now going to revert back by rotating 120 degrees anti-clockwise. I'm now about to show you what the Earth is. It can only be this. There you have it, people. That geometry are the 5 sharps and flats. This means that the Earth can be played in any key. Do you remember the 7 diatonic modes near the beginning? If you try to play them in any other key other than C, you will most definitely need sharps and flats. My stage 1 geometry comprises of 4 components, the first of which the 5 sharps and flats. I would have contemplated a circle of fifths, but I wouldn't have got the 5 sharps and flats in this position. And this is why I've gone for the 12-note even-tempered chromatic scale, because it gives me the 5 sharps and flats where I want them. The next component is the Star of David. It is not my intention to offend anyone, being that I've mapped this Star of David across the entire map. Tells me this shape is not exclusive to the nation-state of Israel nor Jewish people. Now I have used this shape as a programming protocol because on a circle of fifths those 6 notes remain the same, and it will be the other 6 notes that will flip. The B will flip with the F, C sharp D flat will flip with the G, A will flip with D sharp and E flat. In order to have access to the 12 notes in the chromatic scale and the circle of fifths, I implemented the 6 notes from the B major scale and the 6 notes from the D flat scale. Now it's not every day that someone can turn to you and say, hey, I think I'm giving you a modicum of an inclination as to the mindset of whoever created the Earth. From the Fibonacci spiral, the 9 rings are born, including the 1 ring to rule them all, and here they are. Notice the bass clef? It's a spiral, it's a Fibonacci spiral. Some notes rest on the lines, some notes rest in the spaces. Those horizontal lines are the staff. This is where the wizards and their staffs, this is where that comes from. I'm now going to show you the 9 rings on the Gleason map. Hurrah for circular notation, that's what I say. And can you make out the horizontal bar just beneath the C at the top? I didn't put that there. That was on the Gleason map. Here we are a tad closer. In the key of C, G to G would give us G Mixolydian. And still with C as the root, A to A would give us A Aeolian. I concur. Nuclear power is essentially glorified steam. But nuclear bombs are a totally different animal, and one that utilizes the music of the spheres, an actual science with astrology at its core. A geometric shape may only be viewed as sacred if it has energetic possibilities, It will only have energetic properties if the correct unit of measure is used. Depending on what geometry the celestial bodies form in our skies, will have influence on specific locations only at certain times. They become harmonically active. For a brief moment, these Mars-type God-of-War triangles may have high energetic yields. What Bruce Cathy identified was that a full-scale nuclear war would be highly unlikely, because what's the point of Russia bombing America? Maybe America having to wait a day, 2, 3 days, 4 days, a week, 2 weeks before they could retaliate. You see, our leaders were bound by the same physics restrictions that we all are. In any case, any scientist worth their weight working for any nation, they would all know in advance the windows of opportunity. Therefore, any detonation now would have to be a contrived act agreed upon by all superpowers. Using the Algerian site as an example, let's see if we can identify how these places are being harmonically activated. Using Venus as a hub, Venus is most definitely C, Mars is an E, Saturn is a G. So for Mars to be harmonically tuned, it would have to sit within the E segment and the E ring, which it is. For Saturn to be harmonically tuned, again that would have to sit in the G ring within the G segment. Here, Saturn and Mars appear to be harmonically in tune. Venus, while it's sitting on just within the C ring, is not in the C segment. What we have here is essentially a C chord 3-note triad, C, E, G. I've moved Venus to the C section on the C ring. It still has an alignment with Mars that is in tune, and there's still that right angle between Mars and Saturn. It's just we're looking at the intersection now where Algeria is. Now, in regard of this formation, I'm quite happy that the C chord can in fact be triggered. The C is in tune, the E is in tune, the G is in tune. What I've done now, I've pulled the moon into the mix. The moon is a floater. I've placed the moon in the A ring, although it's in the B segment. But what the moon can be doing in this instant is tamper with Venus, thus making Venus sharp, C sharp. This 3-note triad now, C sharp, E, G, will be a C diminished chord. And those of you familiar with horror films know full well that they use a lot of diminished chords in horror films. Now we have to bring the sun into play. We have to bring the sun into play because it's the sun's arc that triggers everything off. They use a certain amount of conventional explosive to help with the compression when they implode the nuclear bomb. But it's the sun's arc that triggers everything off. Here I've highlighted the intersection. We all know Jesus dies on the cross. And although the sun is in the D segment, the sun being a D, its arc will be in Algeria, in the D ring. This is the Games of Thrones writer George R.R. Martin. This is an alleged quote. There is only one God, and his name is death, and there is only one thing we say to death, not today. Charming, but I think I know what he's trying to tell us. With the zodiac, as well as the 7 natural notes but in octaves, you get the 5 sharps and flats but pentatonically tuned. But not only that, the zodiac also caters for muting. So what they can do now is that they would mute Venus and Mars. They would strike off a G octave, and finish with the sun's arc being a D. That's why in my book, God is not the creator. Oh no. Do you remember earlier when we were discussing sacred geometry and the need to use the correct unit of measure? As far as resonance is concerned, if you want a thing to hold energetic properties, it's all about the divisive just tuning. Look at this majestic fellow. He is aboriginal. He is an A sharp, B flat original. And just like with the Star of David, people, 12 friggin' notes, 12 friggin' tribes. Does this look all too familiar to you? Well, it should do. Oh my.